So the film I have probably the most affection for is this one over here. It's listed there as Shadow Play, but it's Into the Chasm. It stars John Crowther, who kind of becomes a mentor of sorts. He was a working screenwriter. I make a short film about him called John Crowther. Probably the best of the first three, probably the most skillfully crafted. Still formally some problems. It's still a little too static. And it opens up with a lot of motion. Kind of a cool sequence. It kind of follows these several guys who may or may not have been programmed to go on shooting sprees. It's a little dark. It's kind of at the edge of that whole, it was kind of influenced by Columbine and Eyes Wide Shut and a little bit maybe Manchurian Candidate, Parallax View-ish. John Crowther's amazing. At the time I was in Minneapolis, St. Paul, I was doing pretty well with the Real Casino, and I was there. I had to kind of get out of Chicago. My girlfriend at the time was in vet school there, and I shot Into the Chasm there. That was the third film. Psychotropic I shot primarily in St. Louis and Dallas. In Hock Staying There, Chicago, and partially St. Paul, and then Into the Chasm / Shadow Play, Minneapolis, St. Paul, primarily St. Paul. And Crowther flew in from LA, man, to do the film. It was amazing. It was incredible. Because Psychotropic didn't go, In Hock didn't really go, Into the Chasm didn't really go. And there were some issues, but it was certainly, should have been in any of the underground film festivals, should have been a slam dunk. I could find you a fucking million fucking films that should have been programmed instead of just Crowther's performance alone, the subject matter, the skill with which was made, the different locations, the visual thing. There's some 16 again, 16 millimeter that I pulled from different things, some Super 8. It just, the performances are much better, much more sophisticated. The sound's better. All aspects of the production value are better. And then, someone said, one of these guys, Robert Hawke, this douchebag, one of these guys charging people for consultant, said, if you boiled it down to a really chilling short, you would have something, So I did that, but years later, though, so around 05, 06, I cut it down to about 16 minutes. Still no bite. I mean, again, as a short, should have been programmed. And that's where, what do you see? Shadow Play there. Whatever. I mean, we could go on and on and on. Certainly had, and now in 05, 06, now there was a context of Iraq, the war in Iraq, that in other words, these guys are being programmed, told to go, fight because of 9/11. Doesn't really have much to do with Iraq, does it? So, there were a lot of elements and subtext that really hit with that I was able to incorporate some footage, of Iraq and so forth. So, I mean, the war in Iraq, Iraq, whatever. Just again, I think it's, if you don't get one in, it's tough to get the others in. The Real Casino is a whole different ball of wax. You're not going to say, oh, here's my film about the real wise guys, and look at my 3 first features here that have nothing to do with that, or a completely different genre, completely different style, so on and so forth. So, obviously very difficult to sell, but I still think that's some of my best work, man. I think it's a really powerful film on many levels. I'm going to put that up on DVD as well on eBay. It was on Vimeo on demand, but that just I think that site is garbage basically. So whatever. That's it. We'll talk about it maybe more, but that's really the last of them. I think the best of the three that really deserves some love. Into the Chasm / Shadow Play, the short.